Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in the White House Forum on Veterans Homelessness. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank First Lady Michelle Obama for her devotion and dedication in assisting this effort to house our veterans, as well as the overall efforts, hard work, and outreach she has undertaken on behalf of all veterans and their families. In our society, every veteran and every individual should have a home. I'm here representing Salt Lake City, which of course I'm proud to do. But when I consider how Salt Lake City and our region has approached and addressed homelessness, and particularly veterans' homelessness, I know that I'm representing dozens of dedicated, selfless people and organizations that for decades have focused on providing housing for our homeless friends. The big difference between what we have been doing to meet the goal of eliminating homelessness in Salt Lake City by 2016, we're 75% of the way there, and the great success for our valued veterans has been the additional resources the VA and HUD brought to the table to join us in a singular effort to end veterans' homelessness. They brought increased dollars, increased staffing capacity, and the same valued approach to partnerships that we had developed in Salt Lake City. Let me tell you the story of one man I met recently. As a young man, Stacy worked in a high explosives unit in the US military. After returning from the military, however, he spent roughly 15 years homeless in Salt Lake City, battling depression and diabetes. For the last 3 years, both he and his wife, Marilyn, also a diabetic, sought refuge at a local shelter, but without an insulin refrigerator and regular health care, managing their common condition was a challenge. This past month, Stacy, Marilyn, and their dog Buddy moved into a permanent home of their own. Stacy said, "Our apartment is like a safe haven. Sometimes I feel like I am dreaming." To the Obama administration, Secretary Donovan, and to the VA, I salute and thank you. When we can all combine our resources and work together, amazing results happen. We have much to do, so I don't want to leave the impression that we in Salt Lake City feel like we have completed our task. We are committed to ending homelessness among all members of our community. With the success to date with our veterans, the way and means are proven. Thank you for giving me, on behalf of the many dedicated people in our community, an opportunity to be with you here today. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce the gentleman named as the Acting Secretary of the Veterans Administration by President Obama on Friday. Acting Secretary Gibson has devoted his life to serving our country and our veterans. He graduated from West Point and served in the infantry. And most recently, he was the President and CEO of the USO. Acting Secretary Gibson has 20 years of private sector and nonprofit experience that he brings to bear to build a 21st century VA. Please welcome Acting Secretary of the Veterans Administration, Sloan Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ending veteran homelessness is one of VA's 3 agency priority goals. Under the circumstances, I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention one other goal that we have, and that's improving veteran access to VA care and service. As the President has directed, we are moving immediately to get veterans off of wait lists and into clinics, and we're taking action to fix the systemic problems that allowed these unacceptable waits to occur. We demonstrated in the past our ability to tackle tough challenges. We've automated claims processing, cleared half the backlog, and we're on our way to eliminating veteran homelessness. But that last tough challenge we can't do on our own. It's a challenge that requires close collaboration among federal, state, local governments, and community groups. VA and HUD may have resources, but we depend on over 4,000 partners to extend services to homeless veterans. Last year, thanks to those partners, more than 45,000 veterans and family members were housed using HUD VASH vouchers. More than 60,000 were saved from eviction thanks to VA's supported services for veteran families. And more than 45,000 veterans found temporary housing through VA's grant and per diem program. All thanks to the collaborative relationship between public and private enterprise across our country. We've got a winning strategy. It's the housing first approach. Get veterans into permanent housing, then meet the clinical and other needs. The result is that we're not just getting veterans off the street, we're healing minds and bodies, and we're making better use of resources, which means that we can help that many more veterans. How does that work? Emergency room visits down 27%. Inpatient hospitalizations down 33%. Healthcare costs down 32%. Housing first works, and we know that it works best when we've got a close collaborative relationship with our partners in cities, counties, community groups, and local VA health facilities. That's why we need local leadership. Leaders on the ground in every city that take charge, that marshal the available resources, that help forge the necessary connections among the many partners that are required to make all this work. We've proven we can reduce veterans' homelessness. Now let's end it. Special thanks to the First Lady for supporting this effort. And as I can tell you from my own personal experience from supporting so many other efforts for veterans and for service members and military families, thanks to all of you for taking up the challenge. We're depending on you. Much more importantly, our veterans are depending on you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our leading federal partner, this year's chair of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, HUD Secretary Sean Donovan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Acting Secretary Gibson, thank you for the kind introduction. Much more importantly, thank you for your service to this country and for the work that's ahead of us together to house every veteran in this country. To all, clap for that. I look around the room, I see so many mayors who have become not just partners, but close friends over these years. In this battle to end homelessness, you have been our warriors, you have been our partners. Thank you for your incredible commitment to this work. Let's give our mayors a round of applause. And to every other distinguished guest and friend that's here today, for the past 4 years, I want to tell you, it has been my great honor to help advance the goals of President Obama's historic Opening Doors initiative. This is the nation's first comprehensive strategy to prevent and end homelessness. It's an effort that reflects our country's most basic ideals and values, that every person deserves a fair chance to thrive, that we all benefit when our neighbors in need can lift themselves up, and that our country can actually solve big challenges when we're committed and when we work together. Over the years, we've proven that we can house anyone. Now our charge is to house everyone. And at the heart of this work is helping our nation's veterans. These brave men and women have given so much of themselves to protect our lives, our liberty, and it's only right that we give back to them. And Opening Doors is doing just that. Through the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, 19 federal agencies have come together working with all of our local partners, and we're collaborating like never before to enhance our efforts. We're using a data-driven approach at both the national and local level to maximize effectiveness. I drive my team crazy going through the numbers every month. We work very, very closely with VA and so many partners. And we've embraced the approaches that work, like Housing First, that are particularly effective for chronic homelessness. Now, as the First Lady is about to highlight, we have made tremendous progress. And local leaders like you have been instrumental. We have got to keep this momentum going. And that is why I am so excited to be here today with all of you. Together, we can give our nation's veterans not just shelter and support, but also new hope for the future. I remember visiting a veteran recently who we'd helped secure housing. As he was sitting in the first apartment he'd lived in 20 years, he told me that when he first walked into that apartment, he got on his knees and prayed. He said, "I now live like a human being." Like a human being. He said, "My future is brighter." Every veteran deserves the chance to feel that same way. And HUD looks forward to working with all of you to give our veterans that chance. Ensure that every man and woman who has served this country has a place to call home. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you. I now have the great pleasure of introducing Chris Fuentes, an American who served this country with distinction in Iraq. After returning home, she had her struggles, but she didn't stay down. In fact, after receiving a little bit of help from federal programs, she was able to lift herself up and is now doing incredibly well. And she's here today to share her story. So please welcome Chris Fuentes.
Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share my story. My name is Chris Fuentes. I'm 25 years old. I have a daughter named Nyla who is 3 years old. I live in Philadelphia. I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom after my reserve unit was called into active service in Iraq. When I returned from active duty, my apartment and job were gone. At one point, I found myself living in a car while my daughter stayed with my mother. I was all over the place, jumping from place to place and had no stability. This really prevented me from moving forward. I knew that if only I could have a roof over my head, everything else would fall into place. Another veteran told me about the HUD-VASH program and said that I didn't have to be living like this. I didn't believe it at first, but I went to the VA in Philadelphia to try. They took my application, and eventually the case manager called me and told me I was accepted. On the day I found out I was approved, I cried. It felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders. My case manager suggested I apply for another program that helps veterans and their families called SSVF. They helped me to locate an apartment and gave me the security deposit and rent I needed to move in. They also helped me with the furniture for the apartment and helped fix my car so I could get to school. And when I moved in, I was able to reunite with my daughter. Today, thanks to these programs, we have a home again. I'm still in the reserves and I'm going to school on the GI Bill. I think it's very important to spread the word about these great programs. I'm going to take every chance I have to tell other veterans that they can get help from these programs. Just like I did, these programs give veterans a second chance at life and allows them the opportunity to not worry about where they might have to lay their head at night. And now it's my pleasure to introduce someone who has shown her commitment to families like mine again and again. Together with Dr. Jill Biden, she launched the Joining Forces initiative to rally America's businesses, schools, hospitals, and communities to reach out to honor and serve our troops, veterans, and military families. Not just in words, but with real, concrete action. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming First Lady Michelle Obama.
Thank you so much. This is a good news day, and I am honored to welcome everyone here to the White House. I want to start by thanking Chris. Let's give Chris a round of applause for her courage. And, you know, I look at Chris and I go, you know, she's a baby. You know, I mean, she served our country and she's a baby. And Chris is also the face of veterans and the face of homelessness, which is why today is so important. And we are grateful that she could be here to share her story. We are proud of you, Chris, and proud of everything you're going to do because we know you're going to keep contributing. So. I also want to thank Secretary Donovan for his tremendous leadership at HUD, as well as Mayor Julian Castro, who we are confident will continue to build on the progress that we've been making. I also want to thank Acting Secretary Sloan Gibson. Sloan and I have done some really good work together, and I am so happy he's joining us and is going to keep doing great work, and we're just grateful for his distinguished service to our country for so many years. As well as Mayor Becker for doing such phenomenal work in Salt Lake City. I also want to recognize someone who doesn't get a lot of attention, and that is Laura Zeilinger, Laura. Today is the first day I got to meet Laura, but her reputation precedes her. She is the executive director of the Interagency Council on Homelessness. So for many of the advancements we've made, it's been because of the council's work to streamline and coordinate our efforts across agencies. So I want to thank Laura and everyone from the council for their outstanding leadership and service. And most of all, I want to thank all of you here today. Our guests, our mayors, our community leaders, the county and city federal employees who work day in and day out to repay our debt to our veterans. Now, unfortunately, homelessness among our veterans is an issue that we're all too familiar with. Sometimes we see these folks on our way to work or when we're walking our kids home from school. We might pass them, someone as we're strolling through the park sitting on a bench and not even realize that he or she is a veteran. Maybe we say hello, offer to buy a sandwich, but often we just keep on going, rushing off to the next meeting, burying our heads into our smartphones. It's not that we don't care, it's just that we think, well, there's no way we'll ever solve this problem. That's just the way things go. But that kind of thinking starts to melt away when we better understand the stories of these veterans. The man who lost his arm in Vietnam, and when he and his wife's medical bills kept piling up, they lost their home. The Gulf War vet who injured her back and lost her job and then her house and spent months on the streets. The Army veteran from the Iraq War who survived cancer, but when she and her 2 kids were evicted from their home, they had nowhere to go. These are just 3 stories. Altogether, roughly 58,000 veterans are experiencing homelessness in America today, a number that fortunately has fallen sharply in the past few years, but whatever the number, These brave men and women have served this country with courage and grace. Some volunteered to serve, many others were drafted. They went off to faraway jungles and deserts and mountain regions. They saw their best friends fall in ambush or because of a suicide bomb. Some of them were left wondering why they were the ones who survived. And after all that, too many of them have come home only to fight a new battle, a battle to keep a roof over their head, a battle just to have somewhere to go when it rains. Now, I want to be very clear. The vast majority of our veterans return home in good health and good spirits. They go on to build good families, find good jobs. They keep serving this nation in their communities through their congregations and schools and neighborhoods. In fact, the percentage of veterans who are homeless today is actually just 0.3% of the total veteran population. But even one homeless veteran is a shame. And the fact that we have 58,000 is a moral outrage. We should all be horrified. Tens of thousands of veterans who risk their lives for our country are sleeping in their cars or in a shelter or next to a subway vent. We should be horrified because that's not who we are as Americans. And so we can't just throw up our hands and say that this problem is too big for us, because the truth is, it's not. When you break down the numbers, you see that those 58,000 homeless veterans are spread out across all of our cities and states. So even in some of our largest metropolitan areas, we're often only talking about a few hundred people. For example, as of a year and a half ago, New Orleans had a total of 211 homeless veterans, and they've been driving that number down ever since. In Indianapolis, the most recent count of vets still on the streets was 11. Now, these numbers are still too high because any number above 0 is too much. And that's why, as president, my husband vowed to end this problem once and for all. And he's absolutely. And he has directed record levels of funding toward helping homeless veterans, achieving historic success and getting our men and women in uniform into housing. Almost 90% of today's homeless veterans served before 9/11. But this is the first time anyone has made this a government-wide priority. We've got HUD and the VA and the Interagency Council leading the way. And we're also working with the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor, and nonprofits and community leaders on the ground. We've cut through red tape and streamlined efforts across agencies, and together we have made some extraordinary progress. For instance, Chris told you about those housing vouchers from HUD and the VA that helped her find a home. That program has existed since the early 90s, and up until 2008, it had housed a total of about 1,800 veterans. But this administration strengthened it to historic levels, and since 2008, the program has brought more than 73,000 veterans out of homelessness. And I'm no mathematician, but somebody did the numbers for me. That means that in the last few years, more than 40 times as many veterans have been helped than during most of the program's entire history. And the other program Chris mentioned, the Supportive Services for Veterans Families, the SSVF, is a new program started by this administration 3 years ago to prevent low-income veteran families from falling into homelessness. And last year alone, it served more than 60,000 veterans and their family members, and next year, we expect that number to grow to over 100,000. Yes. And as we all know, these programs are making a significant difference even during difficult economic times. Veteran homelessness in America has dropped by 24% in just 3 years. So we're beginning to make some real important progress on this issue. But we know that we are nowhere near finished. As I said before, any number above zero is way too high. And we still have tens of thousands of vets without a home, so we can't rest, not even for a moment. And that's why I am so thrilled, and everyone in this building is so happy to announce a new effort called the Mayor's Challenge to End Veteran Homelessness. We have got 77 mayors, 4 governors, 4 county officials on board already. These leaders, yes. These leaders are best equipped to tackle this challenge because they know their communities inside and out. And they're in touch with service providers who know these veterans by name. So they aren't just going to address veteran homelessness in their cities and states, they're going to end it. And they're going to do it by the end of 2015. That is an audacious goal. It is an audacious goal, but it is achievable. It is absolutely achievable. We have seen incredible success at the local level already. As you heard Mayor Becker, as well as his counterpart in Phoenix, Mayor Greg Stanton, they've already effectively ended chronic homelessness among veterans in their states. In New York, they've housed more than 2,000 veterans in the last year alone. Governor John Hickenlooper in Colorado has been making some incredible progress on this issue for almost a decade. And Governors Mark Dayton and Dan Malloy in Minnesota and Connecticut are also on board as well. And we've got mayors like Chris Coleman from St. Paul, Minnesota, Mitch Landrieu from New Orleans, and Anise Parker from Houston. And all of these leaders are involved because this isn't just the right thing to do for our veterans, it's also the right thing to do for their budgets. Recent studies have shown that just one chronically homeless person can cost communities between $30,000 to $50,000 per year in emergency room visits, medical bills, law enforcement. For some individuals, it can be even higher. But the cost to give someone a home of their own is only about $20,000. So this makes sense on so many different levels. And that's why I want to applaud everyone who is already leading the way in this effort. And I also want to urge more leaders across the country to get involved as well. We got to get more people. I know how competitive our mayors can be. I've seen it. That's why I'm very excited, because you guys like to beat each other and challenge each other. And we saw it in Phoenix and Salt Lake City. So I want to know if more mayors can challenge each other on this issue. Can you challenge a neighboring mayor or governor to see who can get all their vets into housing first? That's the kind of challenge. Can you challenge yourself to be the first to end veterans' homelessness in the Midwest or in the South? Take a region, get it done. Can each of you get just one more mayor or one more governor to sign up? And this challenge isn't just for mayors, governors, and county officials, but it's for all of us, for businesses and congregations and community organizations. And that's where we hope joining forces can help. When Jill Biden and I started joining forces 3 years ago, one of the groups we were most concerned about was our homeless vets. But the truth is we didn't really know how to get started. But over the past few years, as we've seen federal and local efforts succeed, we've realized that this problem isn't too big for us to tackle. So today, in addition to announcing this wonderful new effort, we are issuing a call to action to Americans all across the country to do their part to take this issue on. We're asking all of you out there to volunteer your time to help these veterans navigate the system to find the resources they've earned. Maybe you can donate money from your business to pay a veteran's security deposit. Maybe you can start a donation drive in your community to support efforts to get vets into housing. And if your mayor isn't on board yet, well, light up their phone lines. Write into the newspaper. We all have power to make a real difference on this issue. We have the power to change lives here. You heard that from Chris, but we have another example. We have a wonderful man named Doran Hocker, who's here with us today. Doran served in the Air Force for 3 years, including a deployment to Korea during the Vietnam War. Now, he never saw combat, but he saw more death and devastation than most of us ever will. So when he got back to the States, Doran says the first thing he did was kneel down on a patch of grass and kiss the ground. But then the months and years that followed, Doran just couldn't shake the things he'd experienced. He started drinking more and isolated himself from his wife and his baby daughter. He ended up getting a divorce and falling in with the wrong people. And for almost 3 decades, Doran was homeless. As he says now, he says, I tried to kill myself for 30 years, slowly. Said it got so bad that people were throwing change at my feet in the streets. And finally, Doran decided to turn his life around. He wrote down a list of 21 things he wanted to accomplish. Things like opening a bank account, cooking in his own kitchen. He moved from Detroit to St. Paul, Minnesota. And once he got there, he walked across town to a local nonprofit that he knew could help him. And with their help and the help of the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans, he got into housing and a substance abuse treatment program. And today, Doran has checked off all 21 items on that list. He is cooking in his own kitchen. Doran, please stand. Cooking in the kitchen, paying his own rent, even hugged his daughter, who he'd been separated with for almost 25 years. And like so many of our veterans, Doran continues to give back. He is working full-time as a caseworker to help other veterans find and sustain housing of their own. He's dedicating his life to making sure that every veteran who comes home will never have to go through what he did. And here's the thing, that's especially important now, because with our war in Iraq over and our war in Afghanistan drawing to a close, thousands of men and women who risked their lives for this country are transitioning back home. And we cannot make the same mistakes for this generation that we've had for the past generation. So that means we've got to move quickly. We've got to share best practices between cities. We've got to find every veteran like Chris and make sure that she doesn't fall into homelessness in the first place. And we've got to reach out to every veteran from Doran's generation and get them under a roof right this minute. We have made great progress over the past few years because of leaders like all of you who refuse to accept veteran homelessness as a fact of life. And now we have to finish the job once and for all. Because when a veteran comes home kissing the ground, it is unacceptable that he should ever have to sleep on it. So, just like it's our country's duty to bring back all of our men and women from the battlefield, we've also got a duty to make sure that every single veteran has a place to call home when they get here and for the rest of their lives. So thank you all. Thank you for this effort. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for all the work that so many of you have been doing on the ground long before we ever showed up. This means so much to these men and women and their families. It is truly a sign that they are coming home to a grateful nation, and I am proud to be a part of this effort. So let's get to work. Thank you all. God bless.